YouTube, Awesome Writer here. Welcome to my review for the DieCast version of the deluxe ZenkaiOh Zyuran and Gaon version. So this version is identical in mold, with the only difference being it has shiny and hefty new parts with the DieCast you can see there. And it also includes these two new leg pieces to add to it in its mecha mode to give it more accurate proportions, which is really kind of the main selling point outside of the fancy DieCast. So we're going to be taking a look at this compared to the original version to see if it's worth upgrading or getting as your only main version. We'll just talk about them here first in their individual little animal modes. And like I said, this is the same mold, so it doesn't really save these from being kind of fugly looking designs in my opinion. They're definitely my least favorite of all the different forms they have. But you can see like right here, he's got DieCast shiny teeth now, which looks kind of neat. And he's got DieCast feet, and it makes it feel a lot heftier and more worth it. Like something about the Zenkaiger line going into DonBrothers 2 is that a lot of the Sentai toys feel cheaper than they used to, in my opinion, and this DieCast bit definitely makes it feel more worth the price. With that being said, it doesn't fix the cheapness outright. I mean, you can see here because of the DieCast, this is a little bit more heavy and a little more springy, so it'll tend to buckle a little bit more. And some pieces here, like these pieces, will still pop off and have a little bit of looseness to them, which is a little bit unfortunate. So it's kind of like adding heft to something that's already a little bit cheap, so it feels a little bit more worth it, but it still has a little bit of that Zenkaiger cheap feel to it. And stuff like that will just pop out all the time. You can also see the DieCast there on the tail blade, which looks really neat. It's kind of hit and miss for me when it comes to DieCast things like this because it looks kind of neat, and obviously the heft to it makes it feel better than it would if it was just like a chrome finish. But whether it's a chrome finish or a DieCast, that can also sometimes make it look a little cheap to me. Now we got Lion here, you can see also has the shiny teeth, and obviously their mouths open as a feature of transformation. And then he's got DieCast here on the back feet here, and then you got it on the claw here. I think the two coolest bits of DieCast for me are the claw bit here and then the sword on T-Rex. But he overall still has like that same design. He holds up a little bit better in regards to like the balance of him. He doesn't buckle or anything like that, but it's, you know, relatively the same. Speaking of, let's go ahead and take a look at some comparisons from the past versions. Okay, we got the two T-Rexes together, and like you can see, it's the same mold, and the main differences come from where I pointed out the different DieCast. The teeth there, and the legs here. I would say that it definitely is an improvement, just because this is that cheaper looking gray plastic for sure, and especially with like the tail, it looks a lot cooler when you have that shiny metal bit there. Like I said, with the DieCast, it's always hit and miss. Like if I were to not hold this, I wouldn't be able to tell if it's DieCast or a chrome finish, and that can sometimes make it look cheaper. But with this one, we did start to use that really cheap gray plastic like I just mentioned, so it definitely makes it an improvement. And I feel like the paint in general, like even the red color, pops a little bit better on this. It's still not my favorite design, but it definitely looks better overall in my opinion. Alright, now we got the two lions together. Again, you can kind of see the main differences are the things I pointed out. The teeth there, the legs in the back. Obviously, this isn't DieCast here on the old one. I think that these two are a little bit more similar. Like the color pops a little bit more on this one, but they're relatively the same. I think just comparing them side by side, red looks a little bit better more overall for the new one. This one definitely looks better, and like the shiny teeth really do add to it and don't make it look like that cheap gray plastic, but these are just a little bit more similar for me than the others. But now we're going to go ahead and compare their mecha modes, or their little mini robot modes. I'm just going to do kind of a quick transformation since we already covered the transformation in the main review. Okay, so we got our little mini robo version here. As you can see, not a whole lot has changed. These are still kind of like, really bulky looking, and you can still see basically the main differences all here right up front. The legs, the teeth, the claw here. Comparing it to the past version there, again, pretty much the same thing. This one has a little bit more of a new shine to it a little bit. I think the silver parts definitely elevated a little bit, but there's not too huge of a difference. Obviously though, I forgot to put this on there. There we go. There's the difference there, so that really made the difference. But you can see side by side, DieCast version and original recipe. Here we have his robot mode, and we'll see the comparison in a second, but just like with the animal modes, I think this one definitely has the biggest difference. It's still not a huge difference because it's the same mold in general, but I think this one just stands out more and looks a little bit better, because I really do like the chrome blade there. And this actually, it's not like a chrome finish, but it does have an improved look for the shield, which looks overall nicer, and this one just looks of a higher quality in general. As we can see there with them next to each other, again, very subtle, and this one kind of looks a little bit better because his head's turned, but you can do that with him too, so it's kind of look the same. But I think just overall, this one just shows a much larger improvement. I think that the chrome pieces benefit the red version more than yellow. Especially like there you can see the shield. Again, it's not a die-cast change, but the paint change really makes the difference there, and everything just pops a little bit more. I would say if anything, the feet just stand out a little bit and make it look a little bit cheap. But overall, this one still looks better in general, even if they're both still the same mold. But now we're going to take a look at it compared to its combined mode. Again, I'm going to do a quick transformation. There you have the completed version. As you could see, you know, as I've said throughout the whole thing, it's the same mold. So you can transform it without the legs and it's all normal and the same as I did. And then you have to put them on and take these little pieces off to get red shoe on because otherwise it won't go on, which I'm going to be honest, I didn't even know they came off. Part of me wishes they could have found a way to have it go on there without having to take them off just because I feel like I'm going to lose them. But this thing still looks pretty neat, I have to say. You know, the legs are obviously what makes the difference because it makes it look a lot more proportionately accurate. I think of all the formations, this is really the only one that had that problem because, you know, Vroon Magine's legs are already so big, and then Enyarideon also has a regular big leg, so it kind of fixes that, but this makes it look a lot more proportionally accurate, and overall just looks pretty good. I would say, again, for me, these stand out and make it look a little bit cheap, like it looks like a little bit of that chrome finish, which it is, but it's die-cast, but it makes it stand out as a little bit cheap looking, but everything else looks pretty cool. As I've mentioned multiple times, I really like the die-cast here on the blade, and I think it really has a nice accent there on the teeth as well. Let me just quickly show a comparison now to the original version so you can sort of see what I'm talking about. Alright, here is the original recipe version. You can see the huge difference comes in the legs. Obviously, the differences from the chrome pieces are evident as well, but the legs are much more proportionally accurate, and they just look more natural anyway. Like, even if this was the real look for the mecha, this just looks overall more natural. Everything else, though, is fairly close to the same. I'll say that the head sculpt actually has a little bit more of a tight detail, like the paint's a little bit darker on here, and it just pops out and looks a little bit tighter overall. This one looks a little bit cheaper, so that's definitely an improvement. And I think in general, some of the colors pop on the new one a little bit, some more than others, but I would say the biggest difference obviously being the feet, and then outside of that and, you know, the chrome details, I think the helmet looks a lot better on the new one. Now, this is the same base mold as you saw, which means it is compatible with the other versions, so you can combine it with Vroon Magine as well as Enyarideon. I'm going to do a cutaway now just to showing you what that looks like. All right, here we have them mixed with Magine and Vroon, and as you can see, it does make a bit of a difference. Like, Vroon still has a bit of the skinny leg going on, and it's not perfectly compatible like they are together with their new boots on, but I think it does make the difference with these because Vroon and Magine, even though he has a little bit of that skinny leg, they have a little bit more going on in their legs to make him seem chunkier, so it does balance it out a little bit. I'd say this one looks a little bit awkward, but this one's a little bit better. But still, it's nice that it's compatible. And there you have it with Enyarideon. What does make the difference? I mean, I feel it looks a little bit more, I feel like there's a little more discrepancies in the colors. Like I feel for whatever reason the colors on the other one fit together better. I don't know, maybe that's just me. But in general, the proportions definitely line up more. So I would say outside of just the general mech you're getting here itself with Zyuran and Gaon, this is probably the best upgrade outside of that. Just because the legs really do match better since Enyarideon already has a more calibrated leg. So that's really a nice touch. So if this is the first one you're getting, you will get kind of a more accurate, better proportion version of this mech as well. So that's probably the second best bonus if you collect more of the line outside of just getting this fixed mech in general. Alright, so now we are at the final verdict for this guy. Is he worth it? I mean, it really depends. I would say unless you're a huge Zenkaiger fan, for me he's not worth it at retail price. He's definitely neat. I've really come around to this mecha and I really do like this. I like what the chroma adds to it and what the differences add to it, and this certainly looks so much better, so I certainly don't dislike it, but I just can't recommend it for the price. Like, I know that it's adding heft to it with the DieCast and everything, but like I mentioned, it still unfortunately has some of the cheaper feeling joint problems and loose joint problems and things popping off, and the added heft to it just makes that worse to a degree. It's not detrimental where I think it's bad, but it certainly doesn't make it worth the price tag, especially if you already own it. I would say my recommendation is if you want this thing, just wait if you can find a discount on it on Mandarake or the aftermarket or something. Whether it's your first time buying this guy or you want the upgrade, I would just say wait for a price drop unless you're really impatient. There's positives about it, but I just don't see it being worth the price. I almost wish I could have just bought legs that I could put on my original version and then them come out with a better version later that maybe had some improved molds or articulation or a feature where you can shut off the music, because that honestly just gets rather annoying. But other than that, everything about it is just the same. It's just a little bit of a finish and some slippers. Again, it's a cool upgrade and I appreciate they did it. I just don't see it as worth the price at the moment. But that's about it for this one, guys. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can catch my videos. DonBrothers Enyarideon, signing out.